Right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We appreciate your attendance here for our webinar, Multi-Factor Integration for PeopleSoft, Enable User Experience and Data Security. And a special shout out to everyone who came in to yesterday's PeopleSoft single sign-on webinar. If you missed it and you'd like to get your hands on the recording, and for any follow-up beyond this webinar on anything that I say or might forget to say, you can reach us at info@aptian.com or just use the live chat on our website. So before we start, let's run through some housekeeping items. And number one, you probably already noticed that you're all on mute. But I do want to encourage any questions. So if you have at any time, if you put them in the questions tab on the GoToWebinar interface, then you'll see a little drop down that says questions. You can input any questions you have during the session, and we'll try to answer those questions at the very end. So just a brief agenda of what we're going to cover today. First, I'll do a quick introduction of Aptian, so you'll know who we are and what we do, and then I'll discuss challenges to the network boundaries and what are the most common threats to ERP systems today. And we'll run through on what MFA is and what the FAS is all about, and I'll explain how it fits within the adaptive security model. Then I'll briefly describe how the Aptian solution works and show you how it all pieces together in a live demo environment. So that will take us about 30-40 minutes to get through all of that, and we should have some time for our Q&A at the end. All right, so let me start the introductions. My name is Greg Sosna. I'm based down under in New Zealand. It's my third year working at Aptian, and similar to the people who founded the company, I'm from a solid technical background, over 20 years in IT and 18 years in PeopleSoft technical space. I worked in education and local government, and my PeopleSoft journey started with version 7.5. I've worked on HR, student admin, now campus solutions, CRM, and financials as well. At Appsian, we help organizations protect the sensitive data in the ERP applications. That's PeopleSoft, SAP, and Oracle eBusiness Suite. Appsian's roots go back about 16 years back, as it was founded by ex-PeopleSoft employees after the Oracle acquisition. And you might have heard the name ERP Firewall or Greyhella, and that is us. We've developed an add-on platform that is simply a bolt-on module which lives inside of PeopleSoft at the web services tier. The plugin has access and understands all PeopleSoft PeopleTools attributes, and it acts like a filter for all incoming traffic. And because it lives inside of PeopleSoft, the security rules can be based on your existing functionality within your system, so your existing roles, and so on. It doesn't require any customization, and implementation is fast and simple. And the configuration is all done via PeopleSoft front end. In terms of customers, we have a global customer base with variety of customers in different verticals, from small to very large corporations, anywhere in government, commercial, financial, health, and education, pretty much anyone that runs PeopleSoft. All right, so let me start with a bit of a background, and let's talk about how the enterprise app space, including PeopleSoft, has dramatically changed over the past decade, with perhaps the last 5 months, maybe more, maybe say a year, I guess, since the COVID started, being the most dramatic. And let's go back, say, 15 years. When we had applications running on either the thick client or on a local network with service hosted on-prem. A lot of these applications didn't need any internet access, and VPN was purely used for system administration. And this is 2 years back before the first iPhones came out. Well, we had BlackBerries mainly used for executives, for email, and none of that was really used for accessing the enterprise space or PeopleSoft applications on the web. But PeopleSoft was already thinking ahead of everybody else. In December 1999, PeopleSoft version 8 came out. And this is when PeopleSoft Internet Architecture, or PIA, was first introduced, a complete rewrite of client-server applications. Around mid-2000s, the portal or the iHub space got quite hot. And of course, the Oracle acquisition late 2004 and early 2005. Some of the brave PeopleSoft shops are now starting to open up their PIAs to the internet, and higher ed might have been doing it for a bit longer now, but a lot of companies still keep most of the ERP, including PeopleSoft, behind the firewall. So a shift to a space, for the enterprise applications to a web browser interface was really a pioneering move for PeopleSoft. Around 5 years later, around 2010, the cloud comes out, and a good number of PeopleSoft environments are now available online. Other apps start popping up, and new solutions are appearing daily. However, over time, the solid framework that PeopleSoft was built on is starting to show cracks. It is still solid, but we are missing key features that people are so accustomed to and are expecting from a system that is able to run online in the public space. A lot of organizations still keep the PeopleSoft instances behind firewall, and the only access to them is via VPN. And as organizations move to a more dynamic and more friendly business processes, the demand grows for remote and mobile access to business. As it grows exponentially, the remote workforce is on the rise, and employees are using their own devices now. Shared environments could be, self-service kiosks, hot desking, computer labs at higher ed, or consultation rooms in hospitals is another example where people are using all sorts of variety of devices. So irrelevant whether the network or the VPN is safe, now the biggest asset, the information or the data, is accessible wherever the user is connecting from. So what really happened is that the firewall and VPNs, guard the network infrastructure, but people are the ones trusted with the company information and secrets. And this is how the new user identity has become a new perimeter. So with adoption of cloud computing, and the move to digital transformation, it should theoretically be a happy ending story. However, it is apparent by the big amount of news, even on the mainstream channels, that the amount of companies being breached and exposing a huge amount of personal data is just not that simple. Just, and last year we had Garmin, Canon, Disney, Microsoft. They all had their sensitive data stolen. In some cases, that's personal data, and while in others it's proprietary source code, the top secret records. And earlier, some big names like Marriott Hotels and British Airways were even hacked, though their status demands complete protection and compliance. So while privacy frameworks like the GDPR and California Consumer Privacy Act, you'd be right to assume that these events should have really never happened. Simply the cost of fines and loss of customer trust should be enough to motivate these brands to protect and secure their data, way beyond simple compliance. So really, in a battle of against cybercrime, every organization across the world must move beyond compliance and impose much stricter and higher cybersecurity standards. And when we talk about PeopleSoft, we all know that the system has been designed way before all of these challenges became apparent and widespread. And so we're actually dealing with a legacy system that out of the box is not prepared for the modern world. Our focus should be on people and processes in such complex environments. So what is being done and how can we bridge the 20-year-old gap? Well, let's start with an explanation on how the hacker is actually accessing your data today. So a huge amount of hacking attacks begins, with phishing attacks. In Verizon's data breach investigation report, that was reported as high as 91%. And the purpose of the phishing is to steal credentials. When I talk about phishing, I mean receiving an email from a bad actor pretending to be somebody from my IT department or a bank or some other important source and luring me to release my information, the login, the password, bank details, and so on. And they do that by cleverly crafting an email and website that looks something that I would normally be, accustomed to, like the banking login or login page to my organization. And then I would end up putting my details there, not realizing that the site is actually fake and is taking away my details. And a few years ago, phishing was actually dying off. It is something, however, that is coming back very, very strongly. And the reason for this, that is now statistically, it actually still works. As the networks are becoming harder to hack in, the perimeter is being secured much better now. The focus has shifted back to humans. And it's also because the hackers became, much better at it. The tools got easier, to the too. I mean, when you want to steal somebody's website and copy it, make it look like, feel like a real website to steal credentials, it's just so much easier to do this today. Anyone can do this. And to detect a fake website on a mobile device is so much harder. If you think about it, you can just hover over a link on a PC or a Mac and you can see where it's taking you, but you can't necessarily do that on a tablet or a smartphone. So in a way, it is easier to steal passwords on a mobile device. And if you think about remote workers, one of those biggest groups that are most at risk is doctors. Doctors at hospitals, they are accessing the systems remotely, email on the phone, busy with patients. They do the work wherever they can, which often is on a shared PC or on the mobile device, they are a big target. So if someone is able to steal credentials, they will use the fact to their advantage. And again, in healthcare, there is so much information that is, personal, that would be very valuable on the dark web, that they are being a target. Another target, is basically when the hackers or the bad actors are trying to get into the access to bank account details, maybe to change the bank account details to redirect the pay packet. They will be looking for someone in the organization that is on a higher salary, so that the attack can pay off quicker. So this kind of phishing is called a spear phishing, because the attackers actually do a reasonable amount of research and select the targets carefully. And according to IBM, the estimated total cost of a single data breach is in excess of $4 million, or $250 per compromised record. And this is across the whole industry. So while the firewalls can restrict access to the infrastructure, a compromised account can let hackers right via the front door, completely bypassing the legacy firewalls in place. But we also have the insider risks and threats. When we talk about insider threats, it becomes very difficult inside of any ERP application, let alone PeopleSoft, to see what these people are doing. You don't have the ability to see which pages they are actually accessing, which pages, menus, components, what are they doing in there? Do they have too much security? Maybe they're accessing data they should have access to or shouldn't have access to. So looking at those stats there on the screen on the right, besides the obvious sysadmin, having a wide scope of access, the end users actually feature a lot higher than, say, a developer. In my previous life, I was a PS admin. I looked at large ERP apps, so that somebody, I know somebody has to play that role. Somebody has to have access, in order to support the platform and troubleshoot, problems. But it is what it is. But what we do need to make sure is that the correct data privacy and security is laid down in the application to protect that person from exposing, data by mistake or causing a breach. And news about breaches like that are increasingly more common. One of my, most favorable for me was University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, where an IT specialist accessed and downloaded information about 65,000 employees from PeopleSoft HR, and then he posted that information, for sale on dark web. Higher education is also not immune. Here, a misconfigured online app was leaking information. BlueScope Steel got hacked because of spyware installed on an executive's laptop. And when he connected to the corporate network via VPN, the cyber crooks were able to infiltrate the network just via the VPN access from the executive. And of course, you all heard of the SolarWinds, drama is still ongoing. And all of these examples had different attack vectors, but what they were was after the data and the information, the stuff that can be sold easily on the web. Let's move on quickly and analyze what is happening on the outside of the traditional network boundary. Some networks, such as educational facilities, are by design already open to students, probably the most likely attack vector. And nowadays, access to the systems is no longer limited to the local population. Instead, the users can now access applications using ERP systems including ERP systems from around the globe and from a variety of devices, the mobile phones, tablets, iPads. And did I mention that, it's usually accessible 24/7 while you sleep? The staggering number on this slide is the fact that 58% of cyber attacks take months, if not years, to detect. And while a big number is the insider threats, the third of actually confirmed data breaches involved external attacks as a result of phishing. So the bad people are not sleeping. They definitely see an opportunity to earn, some dosh. You might have heard the term zero trust. In the recent years, it has become one of the cybersecurity hot topics. It was created by John Kindervan when he was working at Forrester Research, based on his concept that traditional security models operate on the outdated assumption that everything inside of organization's network should be trusted. And today, a lot of systems are still designed and doing just that. Unfortunately, the assumption is that the user identity is never compromised and that all users act responsibly and can be trusted. The zero trust model recognizes that, and that's where the user identity has now, again, become the new perimeter. The concept is based on dynamic and contextual verification. A software-defined perimeter with different attributes now decides what access to data is allowed and what is not allowed or what is challenged. And a little disclaimer here is that it is still necessary to secure the external perimeter border of corporate network, but whether it's on-prem or the cloud, that's where the network firewalls, VPN, and the web application firewalls are still useful. But in terms of who and where you're releasing your information or data, you are now looking at zero trust model. You might have a self-service portal or intranet where your employees can come in and check for policies, fill in timesheets, request holidays, update their personal and banking details. And each one of those tasks would require a different level of verification. So for browsing policies, you would potentially only require a logged in session. For filling in timesheets and requesting holidays, you might require re-authentication. And for updating the personal and banking details, you might then ask for additional layer of security, such as two-factor authentication. And that should be very dynamic and contextual based on the information being accessed, not necessarily at logon to create a user fatigue with MFA. So what we really need to look at is how we can restrict the data to the access to the data itself rather than system as a whole. And one of the most effective ways to achieve this is two-factor authentication or 2FA. And we refer to 2FA as multi-factor authentication because it provides another mechanism to provide identity or to prove my identity with something that you know that you have or you are. And something that could be a login and password, date of birth, address, mother's maiden name. Something you have could be a token, a smartphone, could be an app of the phone, on the phone, like there is plenty of those, or a text message even too. Something that you are is biometric information like DNA, retina scan or fingerprint, a voice print. And the MFA methods that you decide to use, you will need to think about those because not every solution will work at every institution. For example, we've dealt with some institutions at higher ed that they had alumni and they were trying to log in and they chose SMS that this is how they want to prove. That didn't last. That didn't last long because the issue with that was that people were being charged for the SMS messages at some stage, and they didn't want that to be happening, and people were complaining about it. So the method you choose is something you need to think about carefully. Something else to think about is different ways that MFA can be enforced. So the first method would be enforcing MFA at logon for every sign-in attempt. And this can cause MFA fatigue. It has tendency to annoy users and make them less likely to be supportive of your MFA solution. It also allows full access to information, even if the user forgets to lock the screen or log out. So that's pretty much the most common way of looking at MFA today, but it's not necessarily the best way. The information like sensitive data. Hang on, going back still to the trusted location. So the trusted location method, you can ask the MFA when accessing from an unusual location. So it might be suitable for certain corporations, but this is very hard to implement correctly because it again leaves the information at risk of exposure, as once unlocked, it is all visible. The third method there I've got is the trusted browser method. Ask for MFA at logon, maybe once every day or week or month, and mark the browser as safe for that time. That is definitely a better solution. But it's also prone to a potential session cookie theft if malware or spyware is installed on the PC. And then the last way on the MFA methods is the dynamic, requiring MFA only for sensitive information. And that way, the user is not fatigued by constant MFA requests, but the sensitive information is protected. While this is definitely the best practice and gold-plated solution, it is usually also the most difficult to implement, as it would normally require a large number of customizations. All right, so MFA is just one of the ways to protect sensitive data, and another method is data masking, and this is where we talk about the sensitive data now. So when we talk about sensitive data information or private information, we're talking about details such as date of birth, ID numbers like passports or national ID, social security number, bank account number, maybe addresses, disability information, medical information, documents, and attachments containing any of the above, and the list goes on. So while this applies to pages like employee or student self-service, it also applies to admin access to individual records, not to mention lists or spreadsheets with tons of sensitive data available on a single page. And what you really want to be able to do is to mask and block the sensitive information and make it only available to the people who should see it, but also take note who is looking at what. So to get to the point of some of the challenges we just discussed, and to summarize it, some of the honest questions that you need to ask yourself or you need to address within your company is, where is the data going? Who is using it? How is it being accessed? And do we control it? Can we control it? So here at Aptian, we've developed a platform that consists of a number of components that allow you to control and manage your people's application, and it's all bundled all into Aptian Security Platform. The user authentication module is basically about limiting access. It's not only about unwanted access, it's also about limiting sensitive information to anyone who shouldn't have access. And we fixed that by filtering all traffic coming in. And this is exactly where single sign-on, like I talked about yesterday, or two-factor comes into play. We can integrate with different SAML providers without any customization or extra hardware. The access control module we've got in here, it's about least privileged access. The high privileged users log in, you can control which kinds of transactions they have access to when they come in on or off your network, or if they log in after hours. Even better, what we can do here is integrate this with the multi-factor authentication at this point as well. And we can work with, over 10 partners out of the box, like Authy or Cisco, Duo, Okta, Symantec, VIP, Thales, Gemalto, SafeNet, Twilio, and we allow you to set rules to pick and choose when and where you'd like to challenge the user, whether it's at sign-in or contextually on a field, element, or a page, or even integrating it with data masking. You could even set up MFA at a menu or page level too. It's completely flexible. The data loss prevention is not about keeping the bad people from, not only about keeping the bad people from your system, but it's also limiting access to sensitive data for legitimate users. So in other words, it's about how you want to allow your users to work with your data and keep sensitive data within the boundaries of your system. And you can pick and choose not to display unnecessary information to people who shouldn't see it. And we can block mass data exports, so for any set of data, for example, ID or date of birth or bank account numbers. And it's all done at our rules engine level, so there is no modification to fields, records, or pages whatsoever. And then user activity logging and real-time analytics are all about how fast you can react to security issues, breaches, and prevent further data loss. So it also includes, the latest legislative compliance, notification, and audit requirements. So when you have the legislation frameworks where any person can come in and ask who saw what data about them, the GDPR in Europe and PDPA in Singapore. Now you've got California laws as well, and new laws are coming all around the States as well. So while there's a ton of logging information coming from PeopleSoft already, we can enhance that with much more relevant and granular info. And this also ties into the analytics product that we can report on performance, usage, and security aspects of the system. So we can enable you to meet compliance and audit requests. So in conclusion, our product allows you to configure your environment securely the way you want it to be. You can pick and choose which modules you want right now and perhaps enable others at a later stage. And not all users have to be set up in the same way. You can treat people individually and independently. So you can configure it the way you want to apply it, how you want to apply it, and some becomes very contextual for those users accessing the system. And again, there's a very little but very important point that we do this all without any customizations. And here's how. And on this diagram, you're looking at a pretty standard simplified PeopleSoft setup. Clients on the left and the web server, app server database on the right. And we've developed an add-on platform that is simply a bolt-on module, which lives inside of PeopleSoft at the web services tier. This plugin has access and understands PeopleTools attributes and process flow. And because it lives inside of PeopleSoft, we can use the information that comes through this, so like the security rules, and we can base things on your security and existing roles. So it's a perfect retrofit to immediately modernize your PeopleSoft with very little effort. So we will help you to install the plugin onto your web server. The configuration is then loaded onto the PeopleSoft database. It's simply a project that is imported into the app designer, and it loads all pages, records, and components that are required to be able to configure the rules within your system. So you are not doing anything outside of PeopleSoft, and the web server loads the policy set and processes requests, and it knows about PeopleTools attributes and process flow, like I said, and it can manipulate behavior on set rules. For example, it can allow, redirect, block, or log requests. And it is all done with no third-party software, no extra hardware, and no another infrastructure or platform is required. So the users have no idea that they're interacting with our product, and we're able to see and access different information than anybody else can because we're sitting within PIA. So I think that's enough of me talking and showing you PowerPoint, and let's have a look at this actually working in our demo environment. So we've set up little proof of concept in our demo environment. Let me just open up my browser. So I'm opening a brand new browser window here. Just fold it up. Yeah. And I've got a private browsing enabled so that I don't have any cookies from my previous sessions and things. So let me start with a very simple use case for multi-factor authentication. This is something you'll be familiar possibly with. And remember, it provides another mechanism to provide identity with something you know and you have you are. So I'm going to use highly privileged administrator account, PS. And most organizations want to restrict access to the admin account to provide additional layer of security. And we have our system integrated here with Duo. It is just one of the many providers that we can work with. So I've got a Duo app running on my phone. So if I try to log in like now, that's my phone here. I'll just have to select here because this is a demo environment. So, and I'm going to send myself a push message. So when I click on that, a message goes to my phone, and then I can accept this authorization request, or I can deny it. So in this case, it was me who generated it. So yes, I'm going to approve it. So once I approve it, the application then let me in. This is how simple it is. And we can set up rules in here that we can base things on IP address, on a time-based access. So for example, we can only ask for the MFA after business hours or on the weekends. And we can do it on PeopleSoft roles. So in this case, we are using PeopleSoft role in here. If you've got the high privileged access, we are then asking you to log in with two-factor authentication. And you've got complete flexibility on the configuration. But that's not all. Let me show you another feature, and I'm actually going to log out of here and log in as PS1. So this is self-service manager, and this account specifically in here, the way we set it up, doesn't require you to log in with MFA at logon. So let me show you a use case with remuneration information. So if I go to the workforce admin and have a look at some personal information, say modified person, and I look up, 99% of time coming here as a manager, I don't actually need to see any of the sensitive information about my employees. And in this case, it's the case that I'll show you is the social security number. So what we've done in here, we've blocked off the access to this social security number with click to view. Most of the times, most organizations would just completely block it. But in this case in here, I want to be able to show it to you. And in this demo, this is called the click to view masking. So when I click on this button in here, and that's link in here, it will expose a national ID. Now, in a typical PeopleSoft environment, that action wouldn't be logged. But now that I clicked on this, this information, the fact that PS1 logged in from this IP address at this time and clicked on the national ID for KU001, it's now all logged. And it could be very handy in case of breach to have this information. Now, it is very useful for audits and incident response too. These days, with changes to privacy laws and around the world, you need to provide them information who access the data. And another function that we have configured in here also is, just besides on that, is mass export blocking. So if I click on this button in here, because this information contains national ID, you are not allowed to download it. And again, this information can be customized and you can do whatever you want to do. All right, let me go back to show you how all of this can possibly work with MFA. So I'm opening a new private window, again, clearing the session. And this time I'm gonna log in as Vicky Zen. Again, I'm using direct access to here to the application. And so far I've showed you MFA for high privileged accounts at logon, data masking, and click to view data masking. And now I'm going to combine all of those things together and show you how powerful the platform is. And this example in here, we've got data masking with click to view, but you must first pass an MFA challenge at a field level. And I came with a very scientific name for this. This is the click to view MFA challenge. So I will click on that and to expose this, and we'll again send it to my phone to get the authentication through. So again, I'm going to use that push notification here again, just simple and easy. I'm going to approve it. The moment I approved it, I can get let in. The account is still blocked in here, but the key in here is that now I can modify the account number under here. So now I'm able to do that, where previously I wasn't able to do this. Now, the masking that you saw in here a minute ago is probably the standard PeopleSoft masking, but the point in here is, you know, when somebody gets access to the login and password to an environment, they're able to go into this page and change this account number, say just before a pay run or pay cycle, and then the money will go somewhere else. So we can prevent that kind of attacks in here, the paycheck or payday attacks. Right, so since I'm already here in my demo environment, let me just show you quickly another way we can integrate it, but this time with single sign-on. So let me just open a private window again, and I'm going to log in into the single sign-on environment here, which is on Office 365 with ADFS. So I'm logging into the app, and what we've got in here, you know, we've got Vicky who's got her shortcuts set up to frequently use pages on her SharePoint, and I'll go here, SharePoint. And one of those things that we can do in here is that we can see her access. We go on the personal access. So I'm logging in to the application via single sign-on, and she can't see her date of birth, I think, on this page. There you go, yeah, date of birth. So again, this is the click to view. Again, remember, this information is now logged that somebody's clicking on the date of birth. And let's go back to her workflow, to the Outlook, to the Office 365 via Outlook. And we've got information in here again about the, you know, there we go, about the banking information. So if I click on that, again, I get logged in via the single sign-on directly to the page to allow her to, I think this one here, to allow her to change the you know, banking details in here as well. So you don't have to, it's not working right now for me. Apologies for that. Must have had too many windows open again. I better clear the session. So anyway, my point in here is that this MFA can work in conjunction with a single sign-on as well. I think I can go this way. There you go. So my point in here, so you can allow people to log in via their single sign-on, but then also do MFA afterwards. So you don't have to do it at logon. There you go. That's my point. Right. Let me clear the session so I don't have those issues again. Right, and open a brand new private window. Okay, so just to enforce the fact that the solution is flexible, I can also log in via a different MFA provider or single sign-on provider in here. I'm logging to Okta now. So I'm going to log in to this environment via Okta, and it's exactly the same environment I'm using again here is the hrm.appsian.com. And I get let in the first go, so I don't get asked for the Okta MFA right at this point in here. But we could configure the application in such a way that once you're in the app and you try to access something that is sensitive, then it will ask you for the MFA again, just like I showed you with Duo. So this case in here, I'm using Okta, and I think we've got it set up on the change password page. So I'll just click on that. It could be any page. So this is just an example, just easy, simple enough for us to use. And then I get asked for the Okta two-factor authentication. So same thing, I don't have to use Duo, and we've got a number of providers that we can use in here. So if all works well, I can confirm that yes, this is definitely me. I'm trying to access from Auckland, New Zealand, yes. Oh, whoops, did I click no? Oh, exactly, yes. There you go. So I'm able to access to this page. So this is all on the same environment. So we were able to not only have, you know, 2 MFA providers, we also had 2 single sign-on providers. So it just shows you the flexibility of our configuration. Now, slowly ran out of time, but what I did want to show you quickly is that that information that I've basically had in there that I clicked to view and just set up, that all information goes into a logging platform, and then from there it goes into you can send it to your security information management system. And one of the ways we can help you is provide you that information in an Aptian 360 product. So this is a product that prevents those logs in a graphical way on an easy to understand dashboard, and you can actually get reports of, say, who's accessing what kind of data and what kind of information is being accessed within your system. Now, this is topic for another day, so we've got way more to show you in here, but just to show you that the information comes through and how it all integrates together with different components of our platform. So now, let me go back to my presentation, and while I'm wrapping up, I just wanted to remind you that we have some time at the end for Q&A. So if you have anything to ask, now is a good time to put them in the questions, tab on the GoToWebinar interface. So as you've seen, we bring PeopleSoft into the modern world. We can, you can pick and choose which modules are suitable for you. For example, you can install MFA today and then enable dynamic data masking in a few months. We can help you secure your environments too, so you can get a better return on investment on your PeopleSoft. You can safely expand remote access, knowing that your treasure chest of information, your data, is protected, and you can do it all without customizing your product, which means better support and no delays during maintenance and upgrades. And that also means that you can go live in a matter of weeks. The way implementation works is that our dedicated team work with you over Zoom and guide you on the setup in your dev environment. You get training on the configuration, and we also support and suggest the best practices, what works best. And the key here is that you're completely in control of your environment, and your team will understand exactly what rules do what, and they're able to configure it themselves. After your team fine-tunes the configuration in dev, you can migrate it to test, UAT, and once you are ready, you can go live and prod. So on that note, I'd like to check if I missed anything and if there are any questions. Scott, I don't actually see the questions on my interface in here, so if you don't mind jumping on and just checking if there are any questions there for me.
Sure, certainly can do that. And just like Greg mentioned, if anybody has any questions, you can put that in the questions section of the control panel. Of course, we will have the presentation recording that's going to go out to everybody. Let's see here. Okay, bit of a lengthy question, but let's give it a go. How quickly does Appsian release new versions based on technology changes? For instance, PeopleTools or WebLogic versions. If we update to the latest version available from Oracle, is it better to wait until there is a supported version of Appsian?
Okay, yeah. We are an Oracle Gold partner, so we do get early access to the latest tools releases. And we have customers, that's a good question, because we have customers who are often on the bleeding edge of installing the patches within days of them being released. So usually with PeopleTools changes, it does not affect our product in a big way. What we do test our product with the latest 3 tools versions, major tools versions, and make sure that our customers are supported. Most of our customers would fit in the last 2 PeopleTools versions anyway. So we are pretty quick to respond, and there isn't really often, your instance of Appsian security product can run on all the versions and newer versions without the extra, without changing anything. But yes, when you do a tools upgrade, we ask that you contact our support team to make sure that it is 100% compatible with the version you're planning to install. And our team might suggest that you might want to upgrade to the latest version of the Appsian security framework. So again, as we are Oracle partners, we do get access to the tools releases, and we do test them ahead of time. So we try to be very, very current, and we have customers that install it, within weeks of being released. So we have to respond pretty quickly.
Okay. So another pretty specific question. Does the MFA work, would the MFA work with our intranet HR portal, which is SharePoint and does feature PeopleSoft screens with SSO?
So our product is basically like I showed on the diagram there, that it plugs in into the PeopleSoft instance. So if you if you're looking for something for SharePoint, we can't help you with that because this plugin plugs in onto the PeopleSoft. So if you PeopleSoft is based on HR, absolutely we can help there for sure. Just have to have the MFA provider that you have to have MFA provider within your environment so that we can support. But if we don't support it right now, we can also implement it for you if it's something that makes sense for to do so.
Okay. Can we protect SIN with a corporate or organization MFA?
Can we protect? Sorry, what? SIN?
SIN, yeah. S is in Sam.
Yeah, I'm guessing. That's that would be like an identification number, maybe a national number or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So yes, it's a field in PeopleSoft. We can basically the way the rules work is that you can specify which fields you want to block automatically or with certain amount of rules. So the configuration is very it's very flexible in there. So yes, we can block not just national numbers or like in PeopleSoft that I'm asking, you only got limited sets of fields you can protect. Now with the latest tools releases, you can actually protect more fields, but with us, you can get it further down. So you can not only protecting a field, you're also able to record the information that somebody has clicked on it, uncover it, and also use MFA at the same time. So my answer would be, I'm pretty sure that we'll be able to protect you SIN number within the organization with MFA, yes.
Okay. In fact, we do have some customers who choose not to use MFA until somebody tries to access something like that. So kind of a stepped up authentication. So no
Yep.
MFA at the front door, but the moment they actually want to go and access a particular sensitive data field, that's where they utilize MFA. So pretty common use case.
Pretty
Let's
common.
see here. How do you guys work with single sign-on?
Okay, so we provide, so I'm wondering if the question is specifically to PeopleSoft single sign-on. So let me just go one step back, and I do encourage you to reach out to info@appsian.com, that link on the email address there, to get access to the yesterday's webinar when I did talk about single sign-on. But the way it works, if you've got a organization single sign-on, so like from an IDP, say Microsoft Azure or of Okta or something like that, we can provide the module to talk to SAML or ADFS or Shibboleth. So you can use the single sign-on from there. Once you're within PeopleSoft application, then we usually use the delivered PeopleSoft single sign-on to go between the different applications, between HR, CRM, portal, and so on. So that is usually the way it's set up. But again, it all depends on your configuration in there. So if you want a little bit more information, or if you would like us to learn about what you're trying to achieve, then we can have some of our technical guys on the call and help you to process this. And again, what I didn't mention before is that we're not a consulting company. We are a shop in here that we know what we're doing. So we will not try to give you all sorts of different things. You tell us what you think needs to happen in your system, and then we can guide you through the best scenario and best practice scenarios. What should basically happen in post-traumatic system. So I encourage you to reach out to us and just ask for a deep dive so we can learn a little bit about what do you need to do and how you need to do it, and then we can suggest some ways of going forward with that.
Okay. Here's a good question. If you use the single sign-on masking in 858, how does that interact with firewall masking?
Okay. I'm just guessing the firewall one you're referring to, this might be coming from our existing customer, probably ERP firewall, which is the old name of, previous name of our product, the Aptian security platform. So if you use anything within PeopleSoft, the way it works is that you're free to use anything that is with PeopleSoft, and we pick it up on the way out. So once you mask it using the People Tools framework, we can't unmask it. So we can change things going out, but we can't unmask it because it's already been done by people tools. So in this case in here, you might want to leave it unmasked by the people tools framework if you, for example, want to do click to view, or if you want to apply MFA on top of that. What we can do though is we can say MFA applies on this page right from the start. So we feel like we add more to what PeopleSoft is offering in this space. And again, it's something that we're happy to discuss with you. If you're an existing customer, reach out to our support team and talk to us about your use case, and we can help you. It is very likely that we've already been through that with another customer, so it's not something that we would have to scratch our heads on. It's something pretty standard that we do.
Okay. Here's another question that we get a fair amount. If you just want MFA if you just want to deploy MFA for mobile devices, is that available?
Yes. Yes, it is. Like if I go back to the zero trust, that's not necessarily the best practice, but we allow you to do that. So yes, again, that would be also use case. So I would recommend that again you reach out to us and have a chat to us. What are you trying to achieve in here, just to make sure that we're not creating any security gaps in your system. So while we can detect whether you're coming from a small factor or big factor device, and we can provide that information there, you would be probably better off to figure out, rather than choosing the different device size, you'd be better off to find out whether the person is coming from an internal or external network, or whether they've been authenticated with some other parameters before letting them into the system or letting them to view the data. So again, yes, we can do it. Question is this the right thing for you? So again, reach out to us and we can do a deep dive and just find out if this is the best thing for you.
Okay, very good. And it looks like that probably covers us on questions.
Great. If you've got any further questions at all, feel free to reach us at info@aptian.com. For the existing customers, sounds like we've got a few in here. Please do reach out via the support portal, for those questions, and we can help you with that too. But again, you're welcome just to go to our webpage and just use the live chat feature in there, and we can get you, to the right people with the right departments as well. So thank you for all your time and attendance today, and you can find us at Aptian.com. That's the website, the live chat in there. You can email us if you have any questions as well. So yeah, we're here for you. And I hope you've got a great rest of your day and keep safe. Thank you.